Welcome to our Just Breathe practice. Go ahead and find a comfortable place to begin, and maybe even bring your hands to lay on your body, whether it's on your lap, on your heart, or on your belly, wherever it is that's comfortable for your shoulders. Maybe close the eyes, maybe just turn the gaze down and in with eyes gently open. Find your breath. Where has it been? It's been here the whole time. It's been so reliably here that you probably have not even noticed its qualities, its pace, its texture. So let's pause to just breathe and see if we can't cultivate a little more intimacy, a little more of a dialogue and an understanding of the state of this body, of our prana maya kosha, and how it links our annamaya, the physical body, to the manamaya, the mental body of the brain and the head, the brain and the heart, and the brain and the belly. Welcome to Just Breathe. Okay, so welcome to our Just Breathe practice. Go ahead and find a comfortable, sustainable seat, allowing the head to come back over the heart, the belly, and the pelvis. And so oftentimes we start to lean into our day, reaching with our chins. So see if you can't give a little bit of a lengthening in the cervical spine, the neck spine. Draw the ears over the shoulders. Arms might rest by your side or even come to rest on your torso. And if they come to rest on your torso, breathe into the hands. Let them expand to receive this gift from the universe itself. See if you can come up with a couple of adjectives to describe what you're noticing, what you're experiencing in this breath. Whether it's descriptors of the breath itself or the moment, the body, or the mind. Bringing a little bit more activation on the pelvic floor and the diaphragm, the transverse abdominis. Bring in that Dharma breath, that efforting, lifting, engaging breath. Soften. Let the lower level of the pelvic floor blossom and soften open, and then gather and draw up. Is the gathering just in the exterior buttocks tissue? Can you feel it in the external perineum, the private area tissue? Can you feel it up into the pelvic bowl itself? Maybe you feel it in your thighs. Maybe you feel it in your shoulders. What do you notice as you cultivate a deeper attention to this breath? Engage and hold the pelvic floor long enough to see if you can take 3 diaphragmatic breaths, expanding in the ribs and the chest as you need. Inhale and soften everything all the way down to the root. Just the pelvic floor engages. Gather it. Lock that bandha and find your breath in the ribs. Inhale to soften. And one more round. Inhale to soften. Back to your natural or balanced Samavriti breath. In other words, soften that pelvic floor engagement. Release the buttocks from trying to lift. All right. Durga breath, belly, ribs, and then the chest. Chest deflates, ribs deflate, belly deflates. Start with just the progression, and then, just like we did before, you can add that pelvic floor contraction and the bandha of the throat on the exhale. Belly, ribs, chest inflate. Exhale, chest, ribs, belly, lock it in. So our last variation, relax the lower body. Just find that stability. You might need to adjust to find, again, that ease in the skeletal shape and the form of your posture. We're going to focus now on the Ujjayi breath of the Bandha at the throat. So we're going to start with that Ujjayi just on the exhale. And if that is enough, stay with that. If you have the tenacity, if you have the attention to bring it in on the inhale, we're just going to take maybe a minute of these or so, okay? So start with just the exhale, closing the throat, and as if ocean sounding, Darth Vader sounding, whisper sounding, blow out through the nose. By closing the throat, you elongate that exhale. Then soften the throat, draw the breath in freely. Again, close the throat and exhale. Now, as you focus on your throat, and that becomes more accessible, more easeful, just watch, just witness what's happening in your lower diaphragm, the pelvic floor diaphragm. You might feel it match the throat diaphragm just organically, and if so, let that happen. What we want to resist is engaging, at this moment, at least in this variation, engaging that lift of the pelvic floor or locking it in so that it doesn't soften. We want it to move effortlessly, mirroring what's happening in the throat. If the pelvic floor can just do its thing without getting over involved, then layer on the Ujjayi on the inhale as well. It's a little more challenging muscularly. Air is still going in and out through the nose. It's happening in the lower pelvis. If it's engaging, release the Ujjayi on the inhale. Let the pelvic floor soften. Exhale. Time as you exhale, complete the Ujjayi control. Come back to that natural breath. The shoulders soften, the jaw relax, the throat open. And notice the qualities that you're aware of here now. Are they the same? Are they different? Are they both? Bring the right hand to rest on the heart. The left hand to lay on top, kissing the thumbs and letting the fingers spread like eagle's wings. This Garuda Mudra, this loyalty, this servanthood of the spirit that moves in and through us in this breath. Breathe so as to cultivate this intimacy. Breathe as to welcome this connection. Breathe as if receiving the gift of life itself. And can you live loyally to this energy, to your authentic self? And let that be the purpose of every breath. The hands come together, resting at the heart. Palms might gently press or just connect and receive this blessing. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. Namaste. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I thought in the very beginning you mentioned that we were doing the Dharma breath, but then you said Dirga, and I thought that you called them the same thing. Three part is the Dharma with the bandhas engaging.
Dirga is just the three-part breath. The Dharma is what I call is when we engage the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor does not typically engaged with effort. It's engaged naturally as just the relationship between those three areas, the three diaphragms. But the Durga breath itself is just belly, ribs, and chest. That's not the same as engaging through the bandha of the Dharma.
So for you, for your Dharma breath term here, it's just breathing with engaging the pelvic floor on the exhales? Or is
It can
it
be layered.
engaging during the three-part breath?
It's not, for me, it's not necessary to be on the three-part breath. You could layer them together. But the three-part breath would tend to sabotage your control of the pelvic floor because you're focusing on moving the diaphragm here, which means you will not have as much attention to focus on the diaphragm here, the pelvic, right? Because as you expand the belly, literally the diaphragm and the transverse abdominis are negotiating how to puff, flare, lift. That is really getting stabilized by the pelvic floor. You might actually have more of the sacrum and the piriformis and the tissues of the pelvic floor engaged just to stabilize. So in other words, you're not focusing, and this is where it's probably the most tangible, you're not focusing on letting go when you're doing that three-part breath. It's all on expansion. It's hard to let go on that inhale of the pelvic floor when it's stabilizing you. Hence the difference between the Dharma activation is really lower, then the three-part is starting to lift that energy up. Does that help clarify?
Yes, and it actually reminds me, the feeling in my body is sort of like that exercise you had us do where we were doing two things at one time and my body was kind of teetering back and forth,
Yeah,
not actually doing one or the other. It's the
yeah,
same thing. I'm like expanding and then release, expand, release. I'm going back and forth rather than
yeah,
just focusing on one.
yeah.
So, okay, cool. I've been misbranding that a little bit in my classes, but if you didn't notice, it's all good.
Well, I mean, it's not misbranding because I make up shit all the time. So what you mean when you say, again, that's what matters. And it's also why there can be confusion in the sense, when I say scorpion pose, what does that mean? Well, it could mean that you're laying on your belly and threading your leg behind you, right? That rolling open. but it could also mean you're on your forearm and your legs are above you, dropping behind you in a balance pose. Both of those are called scorpion. So, for example, if you're just reading my notes and I say go to scorpion pose, you're like, what the fuck? We were just doing cobra. How are we getting to scorpion? Well, oh, maybe that's the other scorpion, right? Without that visual or without additional information, we can misinterpret and therefore harm, right? Do harm because we're not thoroughly communicating. So the Sanskrit or your clever name, whatever you want to call it, is moot if you're not actually explaining what the work and, for me, what the intention is, so that you can find your way there if we share that intention. Make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.